Greetings, everyone. If you're listening to this video and it's resonating with you, or you know anyone who is going through this, I want you to leave a comment, press like, or share. This is how we give life so that someone else who's going through it understand that they're not alone, number one. And number two, someone who could possibly find themselves in this situation will now be awakened. I'm talking about coming into your blessings and how sometimes we, because of these values and these morals and fear, we let it go. I've had so many experiences in my entire life that was, putting me on a trajectory to be a wealthy woman. And I either reject it or just play around until it goes away. You have to capture that blessing. Sometimes, even if it's just a thought, the moment you get it, or sometimes you capture it as soon as someone utters to you. So, for example, I was renting a house, and my landlord gave me notice because he said his daughter was getting married and needed the place. And I had no problem with that, but I was tired of moving. And I remember saying, when I rented from you, I told you I need this place for at least 1 year. And you said it was okay. And now you've changed your mind. And he said in a very snide way, well, if you don't want to keep moving, you should just buy a place. And as soon as he said it, I grabbed onto it. I said, I received that in my spirit. And I held on to it until, I'm now the owner of more than one property. Listen, so having said that, we have to grab the blessing. But before you can do it, you also have to see when those negative things are happening or trying to attach themselves to you for you to remove them. And people, let's not be delusional. And also do not get to the point where you feel like everything can be explained with Bible. We're spiritual beings living in a spiritual world. That's for another day. Anyway, in today's message, I just want to say to you that when I was around 22 or 23 years old, I met a lady, and I can say her name. Her name was Miss Barrett. And this lady fell in love with me as a young girl. And she invited me to her home once, where she lived on the same apartment building. And when I went to her house, she told me to comb her hair. Now, as a little girl, there was a family friend where I used to always brush her hair, comb her hair when I was a little girl. I always liked brushing hair, and playing in somebody's hair. So, for some reason, this older woman in my childhood loved it. And so when I went to the lady's house and she gave me the brush and the comb, I was brushing her hair. Well, after that day, she always called me to comb her hair for her. She taught me how to put dye in somebody's hair. She taught me how to straighten someone's hair with a hot comb. So that's how close we got. And then she got sick. And one day she called me crying that her daughter put her in a nursing home, tricked her into the nursing home, saying that she's only there until she feels better because she was ill. But the lady, her daughter, had no intention of taking her out. Now, her daughter was married to a Canadian white guy, and it was the husband's idea to put her into the nursing home. Nevertheless, when she called me crying, it broke my heart because her mind was very strong. Her body was weak, but she still could have lived at home because she would have assistance that was coming to the home. And so I called the government to report it, and they said that they are not allowed to keep her against her wish in the nursing home. So after that, I would call, and I was calling the lady, and I was not getting her. They would tell me she's sleeping, whatever the story is. And then one day I said, no, something is off. And I told them at the nursing home, if I don't hear from her and speak to her by the end of that day, I was going to call in the government. And that day I called, and I think they called the nursing home. So when I called back, I was able to speak to the lady. But when I did, she was heavily doctored up with big pharma stuff. So she was slurring, she was a little bit out of it, and my heart broke because I thought to myself, oh my gosh, they, are keeping her sedated so she cannot talk. So they can't refuse me from talking to her. But, she wasn't able to have any kind of coherent conversation. The thing is, before that, she called me one day and she said her daughter was very wicked. And that because I was so good to her all these years, she wanted to change her will and leave me everything. And let me tell you, that thing scared me. I thought, wow, I'm afraid of family things. I mean, this daughter would, if she's willing to put her mom in a nursing home just to get her things, to go give it to some other person who I know was eventually going to leave her, what would she do to me? And so I refused. But Mrs. Barrett asked me if I could document, create some documents giving her permission to allow a lady who was really good to her to live in her home in Jamaica, and that no one would be able to get rid of her until she passed. And that I felt more comfortable with. So I drew up the documents, I had it notarized, and protected that lady. Needless to say, when I spoke to her that day and I called the government to report what I suspected, few days later, the lady passed away. And I've lived with that on my conscience. I said, I should have physically gone, but I was working. I was a single mother. I just didn't have the time to go to that place. At least that's what I was thinking. I need my day's pay. And at the time I was working, but I didn't have benefits where I could take days off. But I've lived with that on my mind. And I was speaking to someone and I said, it's like the woman came back into my life with a very similar situation that I'm not going to discuss right now. But let me tell you something. We're tested. The spirits always are going to put us through a test before we can receive that blessing. Every time you're fasting or praying about something, don't think that the universe is just going to open the door and in you get to walk. No, you're going to be tested. Nothing in this life is free. Everything has a price. Remember that. And I think it's that knowledge that I had that made me feel afraid of accepting this thing that this lady wanted to give to me. And to be honest with you, it's not the first time. Now I'm not like that anymore. When my blessings come, I don't just look into a gift horse's mouth. I pray about it. I ask for confirmation if this is something I can accept. Okay? Please, if you're a person who love your family and love your kids, I'm going to say, in spite of that, secure yourself, put away something, get to know your offspring very well, know who you can trust with what, because you do have your own kids that can come into your life and they will take your blessings and your legacy and dash it away. And even though they're going to suffer at the end, then it's too late. This situation that I am, serving my sister with, it's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking. But I don't want to fail this test. And I don't want anything from this lady. I don't. I'm just sharing that because I think I might have failed in the other situation, that it comes back to me and I recognize it and I'm not going to fail and I have no motive of getting anything from this lady. I just know I have to complete. I feel like we are spirits that return. I do believe in samsara, the process of living and dying as a Buddhist believe. And sometimes we are tested in a former life. For those of you who want to chuckle all you want. You're tested and then you come back. Sometimes you see some people on the road, I think they come back. It's not just karma the way people want to look at it, but they come back. Some people say you choose the new life that you want to come back. You agree to come back in that new life to do certain works. When we look at spiritual warfare, it is so serious. Listen to me carefully. I have had experiences that terrified at first and just amaze me when I say, wow, this is real. And I'm a spiritual person and I've experienced things in my dream, in my waking life. When I talk about dream, I'm talking about when I'm sleeping. I talk about vision when I see while I'm awake. And let me tell you, it is truly amazing. I'm going to end here right now and I'll be back with another video. Stay blessed, everyone.